Hey everyone, this is Mike, and earlier today the job balance adjustments went live, or at least the patch notes for them came live, so I'll leave a link to those in the description if you want to go read through the official patch notes for patch 5.4 yourself. But in today's video I'm only going to be focusing on the job balance adjustments. There are only buffs. Technically Scholar got nerfed and buffed at the same time, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But there's some really cool stuff in here, especially when we're talking about Monk, because these Monk changes are looking really spicy. So we'll just jump right into it. First of all, for Monk, there are going to be a lot of potency adjustments, and that is to make up for the fact that Grease Lightning got changed. So the Grease Lightning gauge is gone, Grease Lightning is now a trait, and it will only grant you attack speed. So it won't give you the damage buff anymore that you had before. To make up for the damage buff being gone, they basically increased all of the potencies of all of your skills. They also decreased the potency of, I believe, Tornado Kick, but that was a skill that we didn't really get to use much before, so it now being usable and having a lower potency I think is very normal. Now, outside of all of these potency changes, there is only one that is quite interesting, and that is between True Strike and Twin Snakes. So previously, because Twin Snakes had a very low potency of 170 and True Strike having a pretty high one compared to that of 240, Twin True True Twin has been the norm ever since Grease Lightning 4 came out at the beginning of Shadowbringers. Now, this was a rotation that was kind of wonky because you would lose 1 GCD of Twin Snakes buff duration, which would be your Twin Snakes reapplication. But because the potency of Twin Snakes was so low, it actually didn't really matter. But right now they've buffed True Strike to 300 and Twin Snakes to 260. So the potency difference between these two skills is now actually not that big anymore. And also taking into account that we're now going to have extra multipliers by being into Fist of Fire again, which is still 5% if I'm not mistaken. Actually, let me quickly go look over here. It's actually a 10% increase. So seeing how Fist of Fire is going to be back, and then this potency difference not being that big anymore, there's a high chance that Twin True Twin is gonna make a comeback. So this should make Monk a whole lot easier to play, because you're not having to keep track of like, do I have my Leaden Fist buff up? Is my Twin Snakes gonna drop? Where's my Demolish? It's gonna be a whole lot easier to play now. It's basically gonna go back to how it felt back in Stormblood and previously, where you go Bootshine True Strike and then Dragon Kick Twin Snakes and alternate between the two of those, and the only thing you're really keeping track of is your Demolish. So I'm very interested to see how these potency changes are going to work out. If Twin True True Twin is still going to be a thing, it won't be as big of a damage increase than it was previously, and it already wasn't a crazy damage increase. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out. As for the first real change that they are doing to Monk is going to be Perfect Balance. So of course, like, this could have major rotational impact on the job, because like Twin True Twin or Twin True True Twin was a very big difference in how the rotation worked. But for the first real skill difference, as in what they're changing to skills, Perfect Balance is going to be the first one. So I talked about this change already in my Monk changes preview, which I was basically spot on with what they were changing. The duration is going to go up by 5 seconds, so you have more leniency to use it now, because you're getting 6 stacks of Perfect Balance. So this is going to work exactly the same as Bunshin currently works for Ninja. So if you're interested on how this is going to work, check out that Monk video I did about a week ago, because I explained basically how this is going to work now. So you press Perfect Balance, you gain 6 stacks, and those 6 stacks will last for 15 seconds. And as long as you have stacks, you can use any skill that you want without needing to be in set specific form. Problem is, you're still going to be formless when you leave Perfect Balance. So they didn't address that issue. Hopefully they'll address that in the next patch or maybe in 6.0. Because that is still a pain point of using Perfect Balance. Where they did fix this though is in Form Shift. So Form Shift is no longer going to cycle through your forms, but it's going to grant you a buff which is called Formless Fist, and it lasts for 15 seconds. And whilst you have this buff, you basically have a Perfect Balance available to you. You can execute any skill without needing to be inside that form. Cool thing about Form Shift though is that any additional effects associated with the executed action will also be applied, meaning that it basically does the thing that Perfect Balance doesn't, and it doesn't leave you formless. So for example, if you want to use Demolish, right, your damage over time ability, if you're inside Perfect Balance and you use Demolish as your last GCD, you're gonna be formless, and now you have to do like a unbuffed Dragon Kick, so to speak, without gaining the Leaden Fist buff from it. If you use Form Shift, however, and you execute Demolish, it'll put you in Oppo form, meaning that if you then Dragon Kick, you are gonna get that Leaden Fist buff. So I do really like that Form Shift now does this. Form Shift's amazing now, but Perfect Balance, I would really like to see that change. However, this is already a really good one to begin with, so I'm very curious to see how this will impact Monk, because like I believe you reapply Twin Snakes anyways during the duration of Perfect Balance. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But Form Shift, really cool change. This is just very amazing, especially when you want to do chain pulls. You can do this a lot quicker. Meditation's recast time has been reduced by 0.2 seconds, so you're going to be able to use Meditate a lot more quickly when you're in downtime, or right before the beginning of a pull or something like that. This is just making it so that you can press it more often during downtime, which is quite nice. Tornado Kick is becoming a normal off-global cooldown, so because of that they've reduced the potency by 30, but because you're going to be able to use it a lot more now, this doesn't actually change all that much. They changed the recast time from 10 to 45, but that is because it is now a normal off-global cooldown, and you do not require Greased Lightning stacks for it anymore, because Greased Lightning as a gauge is just gone. Deep Meditation is also getting some adjustments. Now this is the old one, so I'm not going to talk about this one just yet. We'll talk about it when we get to Deep Meditation 2. This is a really cool change, but as I mentioned, we'll talk about that when we come across the upgraded version for it. Riddle of Earth is also getting changed. So the way it works now is it will reduce the damage by 10% and grants you True North for 6 seconds, and it has 3 charges. You gain 1 charge every 30 seconds. Now if you remember how Riddle of Earth worked before, is you would use it, you gained 30 seconds of the Riddle of Earth buff. If you take damage during those 30 seconds, you now get a 30-second buff during which you don't have to do positionals. I thought this wasn't really all that fun gameplay wise, because Monk is the positional job, and just taking away positionals for 30 seconds, which literally you could have a 50% uptime on this, on top of the fact that you have 2 True North usages, just made it feel a bit weird, and I wasn't really a big fan of Riddle of Earth back then. But right now you can just press it and it's a 6-second True North as well as a damage reduction one. So if you do not need it for the True North charges, so to speak, you can just use it as a damage reduction skill. If you do want to use it for your True North, then you just basically get 6 seconds of True North. This is of course on top of your True North as well, because you still have True North. So True North, you're gonna get a charge every 45 seconds, I believe. If I very quickly go over here, yeah, every 45 seconds you get a True North charge. This will last 10 seconds when you use it. This is basically going to grant you more charges, but it doesn't last as long, so it's only 6 seconds. But combining the two together will make it so that you have a lot of uptime on your positional-less skills, so to speak, basically. So I do think this is a really cool change, especially because you don't need to get hit anymore. That was my first concern when I read this. I was like, wow, 6 seconds, that's a really tight window to get hit and then get those positionals. But because you don't need to get hit anymore, this is actually a really cool change. Which, speaking of cool changes, Brotherhood has also been changed to be really cool right now. So first things first, is no longer a 5% physical damage buff, but just a 5% flat out buff. This will buff Monk not only just in general, because now your healers are benefiting from it, but your casters are also going to benefit from it. If you're looking at it from a more optimal perspective, Monk can now also be played in a double caster scenario, whereas previously, if you had double caster, Monk wasn't really that wanted, because its raid buff only increased physical damage, and the return for Monk was also worse, because before only weapon skills could trigger the like the chakra effect, whereas right now it can be procced by the casting of spells as well. So not only are you going to be buffing your healers as well as your caster with the 5% damage, your healers and your casters will also be granting you those chakras. Now, to balance this, they've also made it so that your chakra gain has been reduced from 30% to 20%, but still, like, you have 3 or 4 people extra to generate those chakras for you now. So this is a really nice change to Brotherhood. I was hoping they would do something similar for Red Mage, that it would just increase all damage instead of just physical, but they didn't do that. But Red Mage did get some other buffs, which we'll talk about in just a second. So Brotherhood change, all in all, I really like what they did here. Now, Deep Meditation 2, this is what I wanted to talk about before. So previously, this would basically make it so that every time that you crit, you had a chance to get a chakra. Right now, they have buffed this chance up to 100%. So the previous one was like, what is it, 70 or something? 80% was on the previous one, but when you get Deep Meditation 2, which is like level 73 or like 74 or something, you basically get 100% now every time that you crit. because of how crit scaling works and us now being in the final rate tier of Shadowbringers, we're going to be critting a lot. So you're going to be getting a lot more chakras, which is really cool. Riddle of Wind trait has been removed. This is normal because this would just make it so that you could get Grease Lightning 4. Grease Lightning does not exist anymore, so you don't need this trait to exist anymore either. An Atman change, what this does now is it will basically extend the duration of Twin Snakes and your present form to the max, and it halts their expiration. So the only reason why you would use an Atman is to carry Twin Snakes into the next phase, which feels a little bit weird to me personally, because like it doesn't really serve that much of a purpose. Keeping your form doesn't really matter either, because form shift exists. So it's just to keep your Twin Snakes to go into a next phase. Again, if we have another cutscene like we did with Shiva, this is gonna be completely useless anyways, so I'm expecting this to still get changed in the next expansion or something. It'll be nice for if there's a phase change to just carry on Twin Snakes, but even not being able to carry on Twin Snakes wouldn't be the end of the world, so we'll just have to wait and see how this is gonna pan out, I guess. I don't really think this is gonna be a make or break skill for Monk. And then last but not least, we have Six-Sided Star potency increased, and it now gives you movement speed when you use it for 5 seconds. If you remember that Six-Sided Star is basically a double GCD, which has a 5-second recast timer. You basically get the 5-second movement speed until your GCD is back. A little bit longer because, of course, with the 20% haste, it'll be like 4.6 or something, your GCD recast for Six-Sided Star. So you basically get a 5-second movement speed buff. This is purely gonna become a greed skill, in my opinion, where you just get that 1 extra GCD and then you just sprint away from the boss to not get hit by the AoE or something like that. We'll have to wait and see how useful this is going to be. So that does it for the Monk rework. Some really cool changes overall. The only thing I'm not super happy about is Perfect Balance, still leaving you formless. But outside of that, all of these other changes are just fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to trying out Monk. Then moving over to the other jobs. So first of all, Dragoon is just getting some potency changes. Chaos Thrust is going up by 50, and then Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust have both been getting a 10 potency buff. These are your two Blood of the Dragon skills, so to speak. This is just gonna give it a little bit more oomph, so to speak, which I think is a good change because Dragoon was a little bit lackluster compared to the other melees, with Samurai being really strong. Ninja also got 10 potency on 2 of their skills. Spinning Edge and Gust Slash are their 1-2 skills, so for the 1-2-3 combo, the 1-2 is basically getting a 10 potency buff. This will make Ninja a lot stronger as well because you use these skills so very much. So I have a feeling that they're just trying to get Dragoon, Ninja, and then as well Monk here before a little bit closer to Samurai, because Samurai was really strong, and I think this will basically make them a little bit closer to them. As for bars, they also got a 10 potency buff. Now Burst Shot is their spammable skill, so you will be using Burst Shot the most, meaning that this is going to be a fairly decent potency increase because you just use it so much. So this should bring it closer to what Machinist and Dancer are doing right now. Although I do think that Machinist isn't super far ahead on Bard in the first place. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Then for Red Mage, they've increased the potency of Jolt 2 by 10 potency, and Enchanted Riposte is also going up by 10. This is the first combo into your 1-2-3 melee combo, so you will be using this quite a bit. At first I was thinking this was like your spammable instant cost spender for your gauge, but it is the first one of your 1-2-3 combo for your melee combo. So this is actually a pretty decent potency gain. And then the trait of Enhanced Jolt is also going to increase the damage of Verfire and Verstone by 10 potency. So basically all of your fast casting spells, Verfire, Verstone and Jolt 2, are getting a 10 potency buff, and you'll be using those a lot because every other GCD is basically going to be that. And then your melee combo is also getting a 10 potency buff. It's going to make Red Mage quite strong. It was already stronger than Summoner in the current patch that we're in right now. So them getting yet another buff is actually going to make Red Mage quite strong. It is still not going to be super strong in a double caster scenario because Embolden is still not buffing casters, but still, like, these are just some great potency changes to Red Mage personal damage, which at this point is going to become a little bit much when you compare it to something like a Summoner. Also taking into account that Red Mage for a more mid-core and casual player base is a lot easier to play than something like a Summoner as well, because Summoner is very difficult to learn but easier to execute at a higher level than Red Mage is, in my opinion, and some of my friends think like that as well. But this will make Red Mage really strong, especially when we're just talking about proc. Red Mage was already a really strong proc caster, and now it's just gonna be even stronger because of these potency changes. And then last but not least, we have Scholar. Energy Drain is getting nerfed, but to make up for that, Biolysis, which is your damage over time ability, and Broil, which is your spammable DPS button, are going to both be buffed by 10 potency. Now, the way that I look at this is that you're now just basically not going to be penalized as much for healing with your Aetherflow stacks. Like at a lower level of play, players are going to be using those lustrates a whole lot more, whereas at high level of healing, the coordination between the Scholar and their co-healer is going to make it so that they can use Energy Drain a lot. So at a high level of play, this Energy Drain nerf is quite a bit. Of course, you're getting the buffs over here, but at a lower level play, this is actually going to be kind of a buff because you don't lose as much potency from not using your energy drains. So I think this is overall going to be a buff because, of course, like, these are very nice buffs. This is gonna feel bad for high level Scholar players. For low level Scholar players, this will feel good because now it doesn't feel as bad to use your energy drains on healing skills instead, which of course, if you're healing in a party finder environment or something like that, you will be using those a whole lot more because you can't coordinate as much with your co-healer. So I do think these changes are quite alright. Just gonna feel a little bit sad for high level Scholar play, but it is fine because this just makes up for that change basically. And I do think that Scholar is just gonna get more DPS out of it in general. Then as for traits, we of course have the Monk change over here, that Greased Lightning is now a trait, 20% attack speed buff or haste buff basically. Quite nice. Then they changed the description of certain actions, but no actions have actually been changed, just the description. And then last but not least, also a quick Blue Mage thing over here. Mighty Guard is now not going to reduce your damage as much. This is basically the tank stance. And Sticky Tongue is now also gonna give you increased enmity, which is really nice because it didn't do that before and was really annoying to poke off someone with Sticky Tongue. And then last but not least, Devour is now going to last for 70 seconds instead of 15 when you have the tank mimicry, which is basically like the tank role from the Blue Mage. Also over here, when it comes down to getting 100% drop rate on Blue Mage actions, Undersized Party Disabled was the only thing that you needed to do before, meaning that you would get synced to the content, but right now as long as level sync or item level sync are enabled, then you will be getting that 100% drop rate as well. I explained this before, where this basically is going to mean that when you have an undersized party of, let's say, 3 people and you go into a dungeon, you can still turn on a level sync or item level sync and still get that 100% drop chance, which you couldn't get before. So those are the job balance changes. Overall, I'm quite happy with these. Only thing I find a bit weird is Scholar maybe, but that's fine. Outside of that, everything looks quite nice. Kind of confused about the Red Mage changes because Red Mage was already stronger than Summoner in the current patch. So this is gonna make Red Mage just even stronger than before. Bars changes, it's potency, it's whatever. The Dragoon and Ninja changes should bring them closer to Samurai. Monk changes should do the same, I would imagine. So overall, I think for general balance, for everything being viable, this is gonna be a pretty decent patch, except this one, because this might feel like Red Mage is gonna overtake Summoner a little bit too much. Of course, if you're a Summoner player, it'll still be good. But Red Mage, I feel like, is just going to be the go-to right now for proc raiding again as well. But those are the changes. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of these. Overall, I'm quite happy with them. I'm really interested to jump in and try out Monk when we're done with our Savage proc, because this looks like a lot of fun to go and play right now as well. But anyways, that's gonna be it for me. I've talked for long enough. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.